you are the first female captain we've ever had on the show.
Awesome.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself and what you do.
I am a teacher by day and a charter captain in the summer. I've been fishing the lake for about 10 years. Started out fishing tournaments. My brother said, Sarah, you have the summers off. You should totally be a first mate. So I started first mating for a couple of guys that run charters that were part of our salmon club.
Mhm.
And then my boyfriend, who owns the business that I work for now, he put another boat in the water and he needed somebody to run it. So I went back and got my captain's license. And this is my 3rd year running my own boat.
That is, I never even thought about that, but that is a brilliant idea for a teacher.
Yeah.
I need to get a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That is a really good idea.
Yeah. He just wanted information from me.
Yeah, he wanted information from me. It's like, there's cheap labor I can get through the summer. That works out good. So tell me about the boat that you're running and kind of what you do, what your program looks like. Where do you fish out of and those types of things?
So we are out of Racine, so a little bit north of here. We have 3 boats in the water, a 35-foot Lures Allure, that's the boat I run. We have a 34-foot Pursuit, that's the boat that Shane's run. And then we have a 24-foot North River. That one went in the water just yesterday. So that's the 3rd boat added to the fleet. Having a network, I can't say, enough about that. You have to have a lot of people that you reach out to, because it's a big lake. So I have my go-to stuff that's consistent every year. So I have, I just throw out my usuals and then adapt from that. What are the fish telling me they want? And, talking to other people and figuring out, what the fish want.
So tell us a little bit about Racine. We're in Winthrop Harbor here. Racine, how much further north is that from here?
About 25 miles north.
What's different about that? 25 miles, you could have a whole bunch of structure change. Tell us about Racine compared to here.
The hills do continue. I think you talked about the hills a little bit. They continue up towards Racine. We have what's called the Rock, which is a reef just outside the harbor that holds a lot of fish in there. Just north of us, we have Wind Point, and then a structure called the Cans, which are shoals that usually hold a bunch of fish. We have the Oak Creek Power Plant that's just a little bit north that fish will slide in just north of the point there. So lots of different structures that we can fish, and then also we can come south too. So we have a lot going for us up there.
Is that something that can be a detriment, knowing that, when you go out, if you've only got one big chunk of structure, then it's pretty easy to make your decision on where to go. But you just described a lot of different places, a lot of different opportunities to go to. How do you sort that out as a captain and kind of choose where you're going to go in the morning?
I make a lot of phone calls. It's I'm still in school right now, so I'm a weekend warrior for a couple more weeks. So Friday night comes around, I make my phone calls. But once summer happens, I'm out there every day, and that definitely helps because you get your patterns out, and then you just follow the fish where they go. So right now it's definitely, making phone calls with the charters that have been out during the week and kind of figuring out a game plan from there. But once you're out there every day, you got them figured out, and then you have people calling you. Right.
So the main question, knowing that you're out of Racine, what's your favorite flavor of Kringle?
Ooh. Definitely the apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apple Kringle.
Our customers like those too.
Yeah. Larson's Bakery, is that still the thing there?
We usually get O&H.
So there's 2 bakeries. Is it kind of like if you like this kind, you don't like that kind?
Yeah.
Right.
You can't like both.
Right, exactly. I think that's how that works there.
Yeah.
So just a cool community. You've got is it the Danish community, right? That makes the Kringle.
Yep.
So
Yep.
a cool community and just a great place to fish. Tell me a little bit about the fishery there in Racine and kind of how the seasonalities work.
So we definitely have the coho early, just like Jerry and Dan said, they definitely showed up early. And then last weekend we were already out in 200 feet of water chasing them. So yeah, coho early. And then as the season progresses, we start moving out towards the hill. And then, July, August, the hill starts setting up with those kings coming in. And then there's always the offshore bite that we'll eventually get out to. But we just stay closer to shore early on. And then as the summer progresses, make our way out a little bit deeper.
What are the returns like? What's that fall return like out of Racine?
It's awesome out of Racine because they stock the kings right there in the root.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a lot of return. The harbor mouth is a pretty crazy area in the fall.
Especially those kayakers, right?
Yeah, those darn kayakers.
Jared, do you have anything for Sarah?
Okay, so one thing you haven't mentioned yet, and I know you guys have quite a bit of really good brown trout fishing up there.
We do.
So spill some beans on that one. When's the best time and presentation?
I mean, there's some browns. They're always around. It's getting them to go. I just run stinger spoons, the copper blanks and the gold blanks really do well. I'll run light lines off of my downriggers. But they'll hit coho stuff too.
Do you have to run them closer to the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do run them close to the bottom off of the riggers. But yeah, just the stinger spoons on the gold blanks and the copper blanks are really good. Around the cans is really good, in tight right off the point. And then the rock too, the reef that I was talking about out there, you get some good ones out of there too.
Scott Garbs over on YouTube says that he's going to be fishing with you folks in a couple weeks.
Excellent.
So he's saying hello. We did have a question here earlier, and we'll give it to you. I think it was actually directed towards Jerry earlier in the show. I can't get to that comment anymore, but just asking about cohos and what your setup for cohos looks like.
So right now I'm running a 15 rod spread. I run 4 mono boards on each side, different lengths, anywhere I'll run on one side, like 50, 40, 30, 20. And then, if they're hitting the deeper one, then I'll adjust and run them a little bit longer off of the boards. I run 2 dipsies, 2 braid divers on each side, 1 high diver, 1 low diver, one's on a 3 setting, one's on a 1 setting. And then I run 3 riggers. I'll run like a stubby flasher or stubby dodger and double O, typical coho stuff. And then I always run an SWR just to keep the kings honest. And then, when we know there's a little more kings around, then I'll throw some king stuff out there. Like last weekend, the cohos, they disappeared. So I definitely threw some more king stuff out, just 8-inch flashers and 4-inch flies.
So that spoon you gave me earlier, I'm going to put that on an SWR. And how deep?
Where are you fishing?
Right here.
Towards the bottom.
Okay.
So 15 rod spread for cohos, and Racine's got that reputation where when the cohos are on, they're on, and you're going to be busy.
Oh, yeah.
How do you manage a spread like that when the cohos are gone?
Have a good first mate. It's always nice having a good first mate that knows the next move that needs to happen without you having to say. I've got a 17-year-old working for me. His name's Ben. Ben, you better be watching. And we fished together a lot last summer, and a little bit the summer before. And he and I, we've made a really good team. Like he knows what I'm thinking, or I'll just yell at him and he'll do it. And it's nice where you don't have to say what you need next. Right. So, there'll be some times that there's 5-6 rods out of the water, and then it's like, all right, we'll just get them back in when we can get them back in.
So extra rod holders is going to be the key.
Yes, for sure.
Place to put the dead rods. Talk about that. So you brought up Ben and how you guys kind of work together. How do you get, and this is probably something for even the folks who are going to go out and fish on a 20-footer with your let's say your buddy, or maybe you've got a teenage child or something you're going to go out with. How do you work on that where you can start working in rhythm with someone? How does that kind of form?
I think a lot of it helped for me fishing on my tournament team with my brother and then a couple other guys. You just pick up on what needs to happen. And the only way you can do that is by doing it. Like I can sit in front of you and tell you all day what needs to be done, but you just have to do it. And like, know when to move rods, know when to stow a rod, know when you can put this back out. And it takes just a lot of practice and routine, and people can't get upset when they get yelled at to do something.
Are you hard on your first mates?
He changes a lot of baits.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a good kid, hard worker.
How long have you been with him?
This will be his third season fishing with us. So he came out with his brother and his dad and his uncle as customers of ours.
Mhm.
And he fishes nonstop. As soon as he's off the boat with us, he's out fishing somewhere. And Shane asked him, my boyfriend Shane asked him if he wanted a job, and he's like, yep. So he just started fishing with us, and here we are 3 years later.
And that's kind of a weird, I shouldn't say weird, but it's a tough thing to do, because if this is his third season as a 17-year-old, you started as a 15-year-old. How do you, as a captain, trust your business? Because it's important. Your first mate's like kind of the first person. It's the person that your customers are really interacting with almost as much or maybe more than you.
Yeah.
How do you bring a 15-year-old into the fold and get them working with you and for you like that?
I think, having a good upbringing and having good work ethic is huge.
Mhm.
That which he does. And I mean, he can be quiet sometimes. Sometimes like then it's okay. You can talk to the customers. But just he'll chime in when he needs to chime in. But no, he's good. And just I think he sees how I interact with the customers and just kind of feeds off of that.
Ben, we've been talking about
Yeah,
Make sure you do a good job this summer.
you will.
Have you given him a downrigger that he has full control over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It took me at least a year to get a downrigger where I could do whatever with that downrigger when I was first mate.
Yeah.
And the
yeah.
first food, I'm like, okay, what do I put on this now? So
Yeah.
So Jerry, when you get to that point as a first mate where you get your own downrigger, maybe even let you set up a dipsy, or maybe even let you set up something out on a board. What do you do? Are you going to do something similar to what the captain wants, or are you just going to go and do your own thing?
well, the first year where I was given, like a chance, you try to go with something like that the captain never uses because you want to show off. It's a natural thing, but
What if you lose though? It's a gamble, right?
it is. Yes, it is a gamble, right? I mean, the young kids always want to prove something,
Right.
which it can be good.
Yeah.
Like I brought in a marabou fly, a purple and white marabou fly, because I caught it in my boat, and I brought it, and he looks at me like, no,
What? Yeah. Oh yeah. There's sometimes he'll come up with something. I'll be like,
no.
you're not putting that out. Now, if it's a tough day and we're not catching anything, I'll be like, you can put whatever you want. I'll just catch us some.
And it's a tough day, right? When the captain said that.
Yeah. He's like, can I put that on? I'm like, I don't care.
And you better shine when the captain gives you the opportunity, you better take it.
Yep.
You better shine.
Throw the kitchen sink at him.
That we do that sometimes. Got to figure them out.
So what's it like for you? It's time to go back to school when those returns are starting to happen.
It sucks. Yeah, and in May when the cohos are getting caught and I'm sitting at school just like, oh man, I don't want to get out there. And then of course the wind blows on the weekends. But yeah, no, it's tough, but it is what it is.
If you got any questions for our guests, go ahead and throw them in the comments. We'll get them to the guests. Talk about just kind of how the weather reacts in your area. So we've been talking about Winthrop Harbor and with Jerry and with Dan about that northeast wind that we're looking at tomorrow. But how does the weather affect the fishery in the Racine area?
Same thing. That northeast wind is a killer. Another pattern I picked up on when that southeast wind blows up in the afternoons, it tends to shut the fishing down.
Mhm.
So that can be a little bit tough, but yeah, like you were saying earlier, that west wind is our friend.
Yes.
So that's always nice, but yeah, whenever we have a big blow, it kind of resets things. So then it's just a matter of figuring out the new patterns after that.
So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is, lake trout. And they're talking about doing some commercial lake trout fishing in Lake Michigan. And then of course, there's a lot of people that don't want to see that happen. I think I shouldn't say most of them in the room, but everyone in the room, I think, is on board with that. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of what's going on with that in Wisconsin right now.
So there's a proposal that the commercial fishermen would be able to harvest lake trout as part of their catch. Us as charter captains, we don't want to see that happen because who knows the impact that it'll have on the fishery. And there's sometimes that there's not a lot of salmon around. So we rely heavily on the lake trout, to put some fish in the boat. And, if who knows what the population will do. And so it's been a very hot topic among the fishing community as of late.
Yeah. And it's something that when you talk to, biologists I know in Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, there's a lot of people that are talking about, we're trying to rebuild this lake trout population and we want to get our lake trout back to where they were because they're actually native species. And now we're talking about commercial fishing them off of Wisconsin. So it just seems counterintuitive compared to what we're hearing in a lot of the other lakes in the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a tricky thing because they're saying that there's not enough bait yet. They've been stocking lake trout quite a bit, and now to a point where there's too many of them. So they're not. It sounds like sometimes they're not telling us everything that we need to know.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is the carrying capacity of the lake? Like how much life can it carry? Can they harvest X amount of lake trout and allow us to stock more silverfish? I think is a good question. I mean, it's a good trade-off.
Yeah, and that's something that Wisconsin has done quite a bit of recently is they've stepped up that stocking program for the salmon, and it's something that I know the folks on the other side of the lake wish that was happening more on that side. There's always the kind of that balance that the scientists are going after. I know, what happened to Lake Huron 20 years ago is like the big fear. We don't want to see a bait fish collapse. So there's always this thing. We could just go and just dump millions of fish in the lake, but that's obviously not the answer. So it's this delicate balance that we're dealing with right now. And it really, it affects a lot. It affects what everybody in this room is doing. It affects what everybody in a lot of different places are doing. We need to find the right balance for the fishery to make sure that we can sustain it through as far as we can anyway.
Exactly.
So it's a tough deal. It's a job that I know the biologists want to make the right decision. We all talk to those guys and gals, and they're good people. They're trying to do the right thing for everybody, and it just becomes a tough situation. But the good thing is, I feel like right now we're in a good spot in a lot of lakes. And Sarah, I hope you have a great year. If people want to find out more about going fishing with you, where do they go?
Check us out on Facebook, Schools Out Sport Fishing. And we're also on Instagram. And yeah.
So Schools Out Sport Fishing, Facebook, Instagram, you guys have a website?
We do, schoolsoutfishing.com.
Schoolsoutfishing.com out of Racine. You can go and get yourself a Kringle, get out in the water, catch some nice salmon.
Yep.
It's a good time.
Yep.
Sarah, I really appreciate you coming
Awesome.
on. We'd love to have
Thank
you
you
on
so
again. So
Good
we'll
to
have
see
to
you.
Good fun to meet
bring
you,
you in
Captain.
virtually sometime and
Yeah.
talk some fishing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.